Welcome to this video on why clean eating can backfire. We will explore how this well-intentioned idea can unexpectedly become a metabolic, psychological, and lifestyle trap. This program is brought to you by the Series of Thoughts team as part of the Health and Wellness Diet and Nutrition series. The paradox of healthy eating is that while the concept of dietary purity promises optimal health, it often creates problems. Rigid food rules, metabolic challenges, and psychological distress can result from black and white thinking. Research suggests that rigid rules predict disordered eating patterns more reliably than the food choices themselves. In Chapter 1, we examine the illusion of good versus bad foods. Labeling foods as clean or dirty transforms eating from a biological need into a moral judgment. This rigid mental model sets the stage for problematic behaviors. Food becomes a moral issue through three main traps. First, moralizing food choices attaches self-worth to decisions. Second, guilt-driven cycles mean one off-plan meal can trigger intense shame and overcorrection. Third, all-or-nothing thinking eliminates moderation, making sustainable patterns impossible. The psychology behind food moralization shows that moral judgments and food choices activate the same brain regions. This framework increases cortisol levels, reduces meal enjoyment, creates hypervigilance, and weakens intuitive hunger cues. This mindset is a strong predictor of the binge-restrict cycle. It starts with strict rules, leads to inevitable rule-breaking, intense shame and guilt, a compensatory binge, and finally, a recommitment to perfection. The what the hell effect describes how moral food labels sabotage intentions. When one bad food is consumed, the thought pattern becomes, I've ruined everything, so I might as well eat whatever I want. This creates a mental trap where any deviation feels like a complete failure. Chapter 2 addresses the hidden calorie problem. Clean foods can be extremely calorie-dense, creating a dangerous disconnect between perception and reality. Many individuals consume more energy than they realize while following these principles. This is known as the calorie density deception. Examples include nuts and seeds, which are easy to oversnack on. Cooking oils, often used in abundance, can quickly add hundreds of calories. Smoothie bowls often contain 600 to 1,000 calories, more than a full meal. Common healthy foods that surprise people include avocado, which can be 240 calories for one medium fruit. Nut butters easily exceed 300 calories if more than 2 tablespoons are used. Granola often contains high calories and sugar, despite its healthy marketing. The dangerous assumption is that healthy equals low calorie, which is rarely true. This bias leads to health halo overconsumption, where people eat larger portions of nutritious foods. Studies show people consume up to 35% more calories when food is labeled as healthy. Real-world calorie comparisons demonstrate that many clean options, such as large smoothie bowls or large kale salads with dressing, can have significantly more calories than dirty counterparts. Health and calorie density are separate considerations. Chapter 3 covers the restriction rebound. Overly strict rules trigger biological and psychological backlash. Your body interprets restriction as scarcity, activating ancient survival mechanisms that override willpower. When you restrict, neurological changes heighten the reward response to forbidden foods. Hormonal shifts cause ghrelin, the hunger hormone, to increase, while leptin, the fullness hormone, decreases. Psychological pressure creates the thought suppression paradox, making you think about restricted foods more. Cravings intensify when food groups are banned due to evolutionary biology. Research shows dieters who strictly avoided foods experienced 3 times stronger cravings. The irony is that the foods you ban become the ones you can't stop thinking about. Prolonged restriction triggers a biochemical cascade, causing hunger hormones to spike. This sequence involves initial restriction, metabolic adaptation, hormone changes, increased appetite, and an inevitable biological response overriding dietary rules. Binge episodes follow restriction because the brain rebels against deprivation. A study found that those who followed strict clean eating rules were 4.3 times more likely to experience binge eating episodes compared to flexible eaters. The neuroscience of food restriction reveals several changes. The reward system is hijacked, showing exaggerated responses to restricted foods. Inhibition is weakened, and the amygdala activates, creating anxiety during food decisions. Chapter 4 explores the social and lifestyle cost. Clean eating can become socially isolating, eroding relationships and life enjoyment. It creates barriers between you and the people who matter most. Food rules create social barriers by causing you to avoid social events because of limited clean options. They can also lead to travel anxiety due to the inability to control every ingredient and rigid routines that collapse when life gets busy. Social connection is vital for longevity, yet the isolation spiral sacrifices relationships for dietary purity. Declining social events, tension during family meals, and the disappearance of spontaneity are cumulative impacts. Is perfect nutrition worth profound loneliness? Sustainability matters more than purity. A nutrition plan you can maintain for decades while enjoying life is superior to a perfect plan you abandon in 6 months. The most effective diet is the one you can actually follow. The hidden costs of food perfectionism are significant. 76% of clean eaters report food anxiety. They face 3.2 times higher isolation risk and spend significantly more money monthly on groceries compared to flexible eaters. Chapter 5 discusses the metabolic downside. Clean eating often involves low variety and low calories, which compromises metabolic health over time. Your metabolism needs diversity and adequate energy to thrive, not monotony. When healthy eating hurts metabolism, it follows a sequence. Initial restriction leads to metabolic slowdown in months 2 to 3, where the resting metabolic rate drops. Compensation mechanisms reduce movement, and long-term consequences include impaired metabolic flexibility. Eating the same foods reduces metabolic flexibility, which is the capacity to switch between burning fats and carbohydrates efficiently. Clean eating's narrow selection impairs this crucial adaptation, making long-term weight maintenance difficult. The unintentional undereating problem occurs when clean eaters unknowingly consume too few calories. This chronic undereating decreases energy output, disrupts hormones like the thyroid, leads to muscle loss, and triggers adaptive thermogenesis, slowing metabolism further. Micronutrient gaps emerge from food elimination. A narrow diet is rarely resilient. A study showed that clean eaters had a higher percentage of individuals not meeting recommended daily allowances compared to flexible eaters. Chapter 6 examines the identity trap. When clean eating becomes part of someone's identity, any deviation threatens their sense of self. This psychological transformation is dangerous. When food rules become your personality, changing your diet feels like losing yourself. Self-worth becomes entangled with food choices, and criticism of your diet feels like a personal attack. The slippery slope to orthorexia begins innocuously with a health interest. It progresses to rule creation, social withdrawal, anxiety escalation, and rigid perfectionism, ultimately compromising health despite the obsession with purity. Warning signs of unhealthy food fixation include spending excessive time planning meals, experiencing severe distress if perfect food is unavailable, judging others' choices, declining quality of life due to food rules, and physical symptoms of malnutrition. When perfectionism replaces practicality, the pursuit of perfect health through restriction often undermines true well-being. The stress generated by dietary perfectionism can be worse for health than eating a normal, varied diet. A better approach is flexible nutrition, which prioritizes physical health and psychological well-being. Use the 80-20th principle. Embrace food variety, trust internal cues for hunger and fullness, and recognize that context matters, including enjoyment and social connection. To summarize, reject food moralization, understand calorie reality, avoid restriction cycles, prioritize social connection, and support metabolic health with variety and adequate calories. Keep food in perspective. The goal is a sustainable, enjoyable relationship with food that supports your quality of life. Choose balance over extremes.